Conservative talk radio is constantly under attack. It's too loud, it's too noisy, the name-calling, the this and that. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you something. Conservative talk radio is tame compared to what goes on these other outlets. Tame. You look at this MSNBC. This is one bad place. This is one ugly place. And it is connected to the National Broadcasting Company, to NBC News. And they're proud of it. There's overlap in coverage. Sometimes you'll see people who report for NBC on MSNBC and vice versa. Look at MSNBC. You got Al Sharpton. Al Sharpton's anti-Semitism, certainly in the past, is unconscionable. Go ahead and Google it. You don't have to take my word for it. Chris Matthews is the quintessential misogynist. He's the poster boy for misogyny. They bring this Alec Baldwin in. Alec Baldwin has a long history of gay bashing, among other things. He's a nut. They bring him in anyway. And what does he do? He gay bashes. So they suspend him for 2 weeks. Well, why did they hire him? None of these people would be hired by the media. None of these people would work in Hollywood. None of these people would be working at all if they were conservative, saying and doing these things, not repeatedly, but ever. Ever. MSNBC is filled with hateful, racist, anti-Semitic, anti-gay, misogynistic elements. And individuals who at some time in their past or even now have shared one or all of those traits. Not all of them, but many of them. It is a completely disreputable broadcast outlet. And yet it is of the left, created for the left. And that tells you a lot. When this fellow Martin Bashir, I never heard of the guy, honestly. I mean, I know he'd been bouncing around, but I didn't pay any attention to him. When I heard what he said about Sarah Palin last week, I thought somebody had to say something about what this man had said. As vile as all these people are and as what they have said before is, what he said really did take the cake. In essence, suggesting that somebody should defecate into Sarah Palin's mouth and urinate in her eyes. It was worse than that, but I didn't want to play it for you, and I'm not going to. And I heard that, and I said, is anybody going to speak out? So I spoke out. They wound up all over the internet. I don't know why. Is it something remarkable what I said? No. But we're getting way too comfortable with these character assassination efforts by the media, by the left, by their sycophants and their operatives against certain individuals in this country. Did the Republican National Committee speak up for Sarah Palin? No. Did Karl Rove go on Fox to defend one of his colleagues? No. Did all of those folks on Fox, with a few exceptions, stand up for her? No. And not just Fox. What about conservatives on other cable channels like CNN? No. It's a freebie. Sarah Palin, ha ha ha. Sarah Palin is a mother and a wife and a grandmother. She hasn't done anything to harm anybody. She's expressing a viewpoint based on her own experience and knowledge, which is considerable. And for this, she's subjected to this kind of activity. We sit here quietly and watch, listen, shake our heads, and move on? No. No. That's why I called out this guy, Bashir. I'm not going to play it for you. You can go on the internet or go on the Mark Levin Show website, marklevinshow.com. It's there. It's all over the place. This man needed to be called out, this tough guy. And by the way, I feel no differently about Jon Stewart than I do about this guy. Stewart, who's quoted all over like he's some kind of a news guy or some kind of an analyst. He's a comedian. And he's vile and repulsive and dim-witted. Nobody writes my stuff. He needs 20 comics to write his stuff. Wow, what did Jon Stewart say? Let's go over to media. Yeah, they got 14 posts on Jon Stewart. What did he say? And then conservatives. Even Jon Stewart said this. I'm saying, who is this putz? Like I care. Anyway, so Martin Bashir today apologized. As he should have. For his own sake. For his own reputation, such as it is. But he did. Here's what he said. I'll play all 2 minutes so I'm not accused of editing it. Go.
Last Friday on this broadcast, I made some comments which were deeply offensive and directed at Governor Sarah Palin. I wanted to take this opportunity to say sorry to Mrs. Palin and to also offer an unreserved apology to her friends and family, her supporters, our viewers, and anyone who may have heard what I said. My words were wholly unacceptable. They were neither accurate nor fair. They were unworthy of anyone who would claim to have an interest in politics, and they have brought shame upon my friends and colleagues at this network, none of whom were responsible for the things that I said, and at a place where we try every day to elevate political discourse and to focus on issues that matter to all of us. In the battle of ideas, America leads the world in wholehearted discussions and disagreements, and these arguments can be heard on a daily basis. But what I did on Friday had absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with that great tradition, and I am deeply sorry. Upon reflection, I so wish that I had been more thoughtful, more considerate, more compassionate, but I was not, and what I said is now a matter of public record. But if I could add something to the public record, it would be this, that I deeply regret what I said, and that I have learned a sober lesson in these last few days, that the politics of vitriol and destruction is a miserable place to be and a miserable person to become. And I promise that I will take the opportunity to learn from this experience. My hope is that it will renew in me a spirit of humility and humanity that looks for the good and that builds upon the great things that this country has to offer to all of us, regardless of our political persuasion. This will be my guiding light and compass in the days ahead. But once again, I am truly sorry for what I said on Friday.
Well, time will tell, and that is a remarkable statement. And I hope his colleagues over there at MSLSD are listening. You listening, Chrissy Matthews? How about you, Scarborough? Yeah, you. You're a real piece of work. Lawrence O'Donnell? How about you, pal? You listening? Ed Schultz. Talk about a lowlife. There he is. And, of course, Sharpton. I guarantee you he's not listening. Rachel Maddow, who dresses up her vitriol in pseudo-intellectualism. We're on to you too, Rachel. We really are. That MSNBC, ladies and gentlemen, is a hateful, vile, character-assassinating outlet. That's what it is. That's what they do. And it should tell you plenty that the personnel, many of them, from MSNBC cross-pollinate, as we like to say, with the personnel at NBC News. It amazes me that any so-called journalist would want to be seen on MSNBC, and yet there they are. Andrea Mitchell, among others. And Brian Mitchell, from time to time in election-related matters, sits right next to Chris Matthews. And, of course, Joe Scarborough, the great sellout, the great pretender. He shows up everywhere. And the irony there is he's lecturing you and me about conservatism, about civility, and about things he obviously knows nothing about. MSNBC, I tell you. Hollywood and Oprah. Pretty pathetic, don't you think, folks?